it also includes your friends and lots of people. You bring a book and a rose, a red rose.
Oh.
And that's tomorrow. Lots of people in Barcelona or throughout Catalonia will be carrying books and roses and go to a friend and say, "Here's a book and a rose." And the most popular book to give is a book of poetry. But it can be.
Do you know the origin of that? Why the rose is accompanied?
Well, the rose is the symbol of St. George, and St. George is the patron saint of England and of Catalonia. And
He's the
then
guy
red
that did
rose-
the dragons, right?
Yeah, the one that kills the dragons, exactly.
Right.
For my.
I'm sorry, today is Earth Day. So
Today's
please,
Earth Day.
is.
take note of that as well.
It's okay.
Earth Day.
Earth
Day.
What I love most here on earth is the pervasive green, the easy growth, the flowered air, changeable sky, and storied clouds. I also love soaring songs of birds, the morning dew that drapes the earth, and dreams that fall out of the blue.
Oh, that's nice.
Beautiful.
Kathy.
Springtime poem, that's perfect for Earth Day.
And this second poem is my son, Mark, wrote. Lack of remembrance. Stout-hearted men march through the glen. They turn around and march through again, all for the men who've fallen. And then they do it again. They do it again, again, and again.
Ooh, I like that. That's
Great. Cultural
Yeah.
ignorance.
Veterans Day and also
Hope of a confident April dawn. The hope of a confident April dawn filled with the promise of spring and new life is that the days and seasons and years to follow will be like primeval mud, touched by the honeyed finger of a loving God that gives everlasting life and happiness to what otherwise would be a wretched and hopeless humanity mired in lies and despair. With arms stretched to an impassive infinity, we, the children of the nursery of angels, the birthplace of idols and myths and fables, claim our place in the temple consecrated to all gods. But we are not deities or other supernatural beings. We are only flesh and blood and tears and memories and the imperfect love of transient beings who dream of eternity but are only ephemeral antiquarian parasites in the eyes of Hades, the ruler of the netherworld. Eppure noi esistiamo, yet we exist.
I'd say you did rather well.
yes, we
So you used which?
Joe, I've never seen you have such a Hobbesian view of mankind, wretched and hopeless humanity, mired in
Would
lies and
otherwise would be, but I say it isn't because of.
well, that's right.
There's hope.
You have a nice turn of that.
Yeah, there is hope.
Right, you wept us, right?
Don't despair, don't commit suicide, not yet.
You turn to the eyes of Hades.
We can laugh your lunch.
The netherworld.
And I wrote something very different. The church I attended as a child speaks of history and times long gone. The first recorded reference to the church was a millennium ago in 1012, and by then it was a century old. The pre-Romanesque edifice was torn down to be first reborn as Romanesque in 1147, then Gothic with an added Renaissance side wall. More recently, as the ruin left behind by the pitiless bombs of the fascist subjugators. And now, the reconstructed temple that the loving hands of my contemporaries have returned to its ancient glory. But the pale old stone walls still stand, silent witnesses to the history of my birthplace. The blue Mediterranean skies continue to smile down on that church, and the air still smells of pine and juniper. I once stood in front of the old walls, wondering what was, what could have been, what might become of me and my dreams. I realized that I cannot change what is past, but I can amend the story I tell myself about it and cleanse it of lies I was told or memories too painful to remember. More importantly, I can imagine my future, and I can build it even if it means changing the script that I inherited from the past. The wise words of the parish priest echoed in my mind as I was lost in my thoughts. If you cannot behave like a true shepherd, then go and find a different path.
We hear so much about terrorists these days. I'm entertaining the notion that these old churches and any fundamental religion are terrorists. What is a terrorist? A terrorist is a threat to do something or else.
Yeah.
And what's the theme in religion? Do something or go to hell with you. You know? I mean, that is threat of enduring pain and agony and demise, eternal demise. Talk about terrorism. How many children have been terrorized by these church people?
Not all church people do that, Sven.
Some do.
Well, I'm
But
always
not all.
ready to make allowances, and those that do, and those that find another way of practicing their beliefs don't have to do that.
But
But if you're forcing people through threats of punishment, that's what the mafia did. Pay up or we'll blow up your store. That's what the Ku Klux Klan did.
Still does.
Stay on the other side of
Yeah.
town or you'll hang in the tree next door, etc. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, that's
that's
the
true.
role of terrorism.
And while I agree with you, and at the same time I agree with Marianne, and if I think of my own experience, which is one reason I started to live in the church when I was still somewhere between a child and an adolescent.
Sure.
But I did feel the terrorism of a church, which in my case was compounded by the fact that there was a brutal fascist regime put in power by Hitler and Mussolini. And the bombs that destroyed this church, there were bombs dropped by the Luftwaffe, flying with Spanish insignia in the tail. But it was piloted by Germans, it was made in Germany, it was German bombs dropped by Hitler in support of Franco and the fascist regime that was then fighting against the democratically elected government. The Catholic Church, which banned all other religions, used that form of terror. And I was terrorized, and I know that very well. And I agree with you. I think that if people say, if you don't behave the way I want you to, I'm going to blow you up. Well, these people didn't say I'll blow you up, it's I'll blow you up for all of eternity. And it's like again and again forever.
Yeah.
I didn't write it on, but I brought something from Orion. And I want to make you all aware of something that's happening in Louisville, the 14th to the 17th of May.
The Kentucky Derby.
No. It is something that happens there every year. I've been once. It's sponsored by something called the Interfaith Alliance in Louisville, and it is everything from imams to Buddhist priests to non-religious groups who do social action. Anyway, the first day is going to feature Wendell Berry and Gary Snyder.
Oh.
And it's just a rich, so I'm going to go for most of the week. And if any of you are interested, I'll send you the link so you can see what's going on. But the minute I saw Wendell Berry's name, I said, I'm going. So, anyway, what I spent a lot of time doing was going out on a lake in a boat, watching birds. And they're magnificent because the osprey are nesting. And then there's a rookery near Charleston that is where white ibis, white herons, white egrets, nest and a bunch of others, and they're so close. There's a boardwalk around, which is typical of Audubon to do that. And you can almost touch them. It's just the most magical place.
You said a lake? Which lake?
Lake Marion, what we own with 3 other families, a cottage that's on Potato Creek, which flows into this huge lake in the middle of the state, Lake Marion. So it's about an hour's drive into Charleston from there. But the rookery is at Magnolia Plantation, sponsored by the Audubon Society. So it's a perfect time of year to do it because there all kinds of birds are starting to nest there, and they're totally unafraid of anybody coming by. They don't pay you the slightest attention. So anyway, I'll pass this part around, but I wanted to read this one because it's called Mandarin Ducks and Snow-Covered Reeds, and we have got a pair for this, I don't know how many years they've been coming, a pair of nesting geese, and they are the most amazing things to watch. And they haven't hatched goslings yet, but the gander is up on the pond dam surveying, and the mother goose is across the pond sitting on her eggs. And I hope they all hatch because it's so much fun to watch them teach the geese how to swim. The little ones, the goslings, how to swim. Anyway, this one's called Mandarin Ducks and Snow-Covered Reeds, after a painting by Ito Jakuchi. Jakuchu,
Spit it out.
a Japanese painter from the 18th century. When one dives separate from her mate, death is a mere illusion. She peers through water, assuring this. When the crippled reeds rehabilitate, begin their constant arc toward spring, pain seems impossible. So distance, so change of heart from above or beneath. How a body will twist, intuiting fear, and replacing it with here-ness. Exhibit a faithfulness, wordlessly saying, be not afraid, beloved, for the present exalts us. It's by Paula Bohentz. I don't know who she is, but anyway, I like this. Alan Crawford took parts of the Song of Myself and illustrated it, and it's about, well, and put the colors in, and I'll pass it around because it's absolutely marvelous. It changes, well, anyway, I'll just pass it around.
Oh, boy.
Do any of you go to the Cornell Hawk Nest? Go to, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's the Cornell Hawk Nest. And they have a live camera, and they've been doing this for years, and they have the camera trained on this nest up in a light.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay. And so the red-tailed hawk there is now on 3 eggs, I believe it is. And I take a little look every morning. But last year they added ospreys, and also they had a great blue heron in the pond nearby. This year they have added a barred owl with young. The young is now hatched, and also a barn owl. When I saw, a couple days ago, I saw there were 4 eggs with the barn owl. So if you're interested in this, these are
How do you access it?
go to Cornell Hawk Nest.
Okay.
I'm sure that'll get you there somehow.
Well, we
I thought
have,
they had hatched. I must be looking at another one.
The red tail at Cornell has not yet hatched.
Okay.
I was looking at the barn owl yesterday, or the day before, and one little chick has hatched. An interesting thing, the interior of the nest, it's a wooden box, is very small. And you know what a barn owl stands about this tall. And this little tiny chick is down there in the
That's the
bottom.
barn owl, barn owl.
This was the barn owl. And I just wonder, once there's 2 or 3 more of the little buggers down there, how they're gonna exist.
I haven't seen the chicks in the barn owl.
Well, we saw this year for the first time, there are bald eagles nesting in the lake, right on the edge. We go through a cut to get to it, and I saw 4 bald eagles just in perfect, because I had my binoculars with me, but we were in the boat, and it's astonishing because they're coming back and they're nesting there. It's just,
It's quite a nest, isn't it?
It is a
It's
huge
thing,
nest.
yes.
they don't build small nests.
Well, they are not
Well,
canaries.
they
They're
weigh
not-
something like 900 pounds or something. It's
No, I
really,
don't think, you mean the nests? Yeah, I don't know that, but there's a bald eagle nesting. I hope she's there this year in Logan.
Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't been to see, but I'm pretty
it's right
sure-
behind the restaurant
Yeah,
there,
yeah, the Dutch.
the old Dutch restaurant.
old Dutch.
Yeah, on 664, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. You just pull into their parking lot and go down, walk down the railroad track, and there she is.
Uh-huh.
No, they're both, they're two sheets of paper. All set. This is, poem could be retitled Earth Day Remorse,
Which one is
or
it?
Disappointment, Disillusionment.
Okay.
Sort of where I am in my unhappy thoughts these days. You've seen photographs of Lincoln's face. Is it possible that, like me, you've searched closely to find an understanding, some hope in the terrible weariness you see? Can you imagine his life? Are you able to suffer his pain? Are we able to suffer the pain of others? Just let me hand this over to you.
yeah.
Hey, Ruth.
Hi, Liz.
Welcome.
We think of the Holocaust today. Could we hear the screams? Would we understand the anger and fear? What mentality existed then to turn on the gas? Could you do this? The face of the Buddha holds no pain. He sits as cold as the stone of his representation. What is your first thought of Jesus? Is he on the cross or frolicking at play like a child? What could be the look on the face of the Grand Master of the Klan as he leads others into murder and mayhem? What pain can you imagine of their victims? My disappointment at the human race, its many shortcomings, its greed and uncaring. Can I share this with you? As I study Lincoln's face again or stand looking out across the thousands of dead at the Gettysburg Cemetery, what deadly reasons caused that war, brother against brother? Yet, I know nothing has changed. This deadly knowledge that nothing has changed, politics and stubbornness, men and women unwilling to grow out of their uncaring lives, wasted energy to even hope. Many try to erase or rebuke from the face of those with knowledge, remove all traces of what is possible, scream and rant like banshees for guns and fear. And the clear-eyed eyes of those few who transcend this, we destroy, imprison, yes, laugh at the very few who try. Shall I name a few? In my lifetime, assist me here, speak up, or don't you get involved. Wait, instead, tell me the names of only 10 things to be saved during our destruction of life on earth. 10 things so totally sacrosanct that only they will remain after our demise. Now narrow that down to 5. Now 2, 1.
Planet Earth.
Very good. Sort of a follow-up on the Wendell Berry quote.
Yeah, it is.
That's very profound.
I'll give you a change of pace. Hopping about on one foot. Giggling to myself as I hop about on one foot in the light of the constellation's largest star. Scorpius surrounding every twirl of my less than graceful valse musette pour une in my dance around Antares' radiant corona. Practice, practice, more and more, electrons bouncing between errands created by fingers. Nothing better than hopping about on one foot, better than almost nothing. Can you wait a second or two, please? I'm not quite finished. I can still go faster. The computer's eyes, wide open to the universe, watch as I scatter bits and pieces about as I hop.
That's great. Written on different days, right?
That's joyful.
I've been sitting at that damn computer too long.
Have you ever hopped on a bus super
Very joyful.
That's the way it was.
She's not amused.
My muse hates prompts. She sits below in her underworld cavern, hunched over, tending to the magic cauldron and crooning along with the bubblings. But no, now the fire is sputtering and spitting. Both bubblings and muse are as quiet as cotton balls in the presence of the prompts. Not required unless you want to be a spoiled sport. So here. The chipmunk stretched, but it was hopeless. In his fall, he severed an artery. Oh, God.
Good.
I'm a team member, no matter what, but I wouldn't want my muse to desert me.
That's great. You said it for us all, dear.
Poets. And so she forwards the prompts to us. So that's where they come from.
So you're supposed to write a poem with these 4, or what, you
Yeah.
have what, 6 cases
I
of
think there
4 or however.
Ooh. There are-
And what kind of a poet is that needs external prompts, other than a person that does formal exercises? I think we ought to second the muse down there and phooey on these prompts. If you
Well,
can't
that's fine
find your
with
own
me,
prompt.
right?
Well, we don't have to do them.
I know, but I'm just,
share
I
this
second
with
the
you.
motion.
Me too. Okay. I'm never gonna mention a prompt again. Anyway, here we go.
My prompt came from NPR. Saturday.
Here.
There was this NPR program about coincidences.
Coincidence.
And I thought, I gotta write about this. I couldn't go in the grocery store. I had to sit in the car and listen to the program. It's one of those kind of shows. So stay open. There's this tribe in Africa, I'm told, where back in the village they know when the kill's been made out in the bush, many miles away, far from sight. Still, they know. Sometimes it creeps up on us small. We think of someone, then They appear at the grocery or passing in a car, or the phone rings and we know who it is. A woman said she made yoga bolsters. Unbidden, a brown type of cloth clearly came to mind. Later she showed me her work in that same earthen nubby fabric I had pictured. How had I known? Then there was the time in the shower, not thinking of anything, just feeling the joy of warm, holy water. But suddenly I knew Sasha was pregnant with child. Sasha, my daughter Christina's best friend, her maid of honor, who'd moved to London one ocean away, who I hadn't seen in years, didn't even really know that well. This is the message I got, I told. But Christina said, it can't be. Sasha would have told me. I didn't argue. Truth be told, Sasha didn't even know then. And why I knew I had no clue. Yet months later, when all was clear and doctor confirmed true, it was remembered somehow. I knew. Then another shower revelation about a man at work. A handsome, nice man with an ex and kids. This time the message was, he's gay. Oh, okay. Could this too be true? I didn't even want to ask. But someone later mentioned it like everyone already knew. But for me, the first understanding had come straight out of the blue. We all know things without knowing how. Truths can travel, coincidence some say. Oh, just let those mysteries unravel.
Very good. Yeah, I think
So
we've
intriguing.
all been there somewhere, you know, when
I know.
we feel present, like I knew that was going to be.
Exactly. We are psychic humans, beings.
So every time you have a thought about somebody or something or some event, write it down and then see whether it happens. And then count the number of coincidences and you'll get a P less than 0.00001 that you hit it on the nail all the time. So that's what we call coincidences, right? Yeah, that's what we remember.
There's a lot going
Yeah.
on that we don't understand.
Exactly. And if you go into one of the indigenous groups, they operate on that frequency
See?
almost
I didn't convince
entirely.
anybody, no.
Exactly. That article in Africa where I'd read about this particular tribe, they never understood the telegraph. They assumed it had been telepathic, like the way they had used to communicate.
Yep.
So, I love that subject. And it's something you can work on and encourage and increase in your life, isn't it?
Very good.
Although
Right.
I don't want to get too wrapped up in being, the person who knows everything in advance. I mean, it just comes once in a while.
This is something that's concerned me, or interested me. Sven will repeat his statement 1,000 times about it, the improbability of it. Coincidences happen. There are a phenomena that we don't understand really because we do not perceive personally all of our perceptions. Your cat has whiskers, and those whiskers touch all sorts of things and feed information back to the cat. I think we have abilities to read situations in a way that we don't understand, and we keep calling them things. Luck is one of the things we call them. It's a matter of living in a time before the telescope was invented.
When you
Yeah.
paid much more attention to intuition and things like that. And I had an early morning eye doctor appointment, and when I was checking out, the receptionist told me about her brothers, she has twin brothers, and she had just gotten a call from one of them who had hurt his hand at work, and very the day before, and that same day she encountered the other twin who said, my hand is really hurting. The same hand the other twin had hurt at work. And she said this happens to them all the time. And he'll say, I wish you'd get your hand fixed so that my hand would feel better. You know? So there's a really
They're
strong
connected, yeah.
intuitive link between twins. I've heard
There's a willingness to believe.
Some of you might remember, I went on with some of my oldest friends that I've known for 70 years. I've lived since I was 3, 4, 5 years old. But the reason we went on this cruise together is I got a phone call on a Sunday. And it was a sad phone call. The father of one of our group who said his father had died. He was one of our close friends. And it was about 10 o'clock on the Sunday morning. I got this call. I was sad about that. And hardly an hour passed when I got a call from another one of this close-knit group who said, my wife and I were having coffee on this fine Sunday morning, and we were thinking, if we don't all get together before some of us start dying, it's going to be too late. I said, was just going to send out the message that one of us is already bitten the dust. It's gone. But it happens. I mean, what caused that?
Something. Yeah.
I guess. Well, I have 2 poems for you. So one, I'd not go too cold.
And you've only distributed one, right?
One is called.
Okay, then can I
The
get one back?
first one,
Thank you.
like many people, I'm a great admirer and long-time subscriber to the New Yorker. One of my, and I think it's a great magazine, and I usually read it from cover to cover, and I usually read the poems. But again, like many people, I think the world is divided into 2 groups. Those who don't like or understand New Yorker poems and blame it on themselves, and those who blame it on the New Yorker. So, and I don't like New Yorker poems as a rule. Very rarely do I like them. So I decided to work on this a little bit. I said, I really need to find out that. So I looked up the guy who is the editor, the poetry editor for the New Yorker. Do you know who it is? Any of you? I thought some of you might. His name is Paul Muldoon. Paul Muldoon is a very famous poet, maybe one of the 5 most lauded poets today. The Northern Ireland produces poets the way the Dominican Republic produces baseball players. They seem to just know how to do that. Anyway, Paul Muldoon has published over 30 collections of poems. He's won the Pulitzer Prize for poetry, and he's won the T.S. Eliot Prize. He's a young man, about 50 years of age, roughly. And he has a joint appointment at Princeton University and Oxford University. Not a bad resume. Just rather recently been appointed to be the new editor of poetry for the New Yorker. He is probably most famous, Patricia might like this, for producing the most famous acrostic in all poetry, because he wrote a poem in one of his 30 collections of poems, which mischievously had as an acrostic the first letters of each line of the poem spelled out something. And in his it spelled out, is this a New Yorker poem or what? if you read it down. He submitted it to the New Yorker, who turned it down. They didn't publish it. But anyway, what I was trying to find out is there such a thing as a New Yorker poem, and why don't I get it? Is it my fault or their fault? Well, you can find lots of people on both sides. I've checked around on what that might be, and some people have described a typical New Yorker poem as basically an epiphany-centered lyric poem, centered on water and light, and that it has a series of non sequiturs in it that don't make any sense. And it also helps if you work for the magazine. You can get yourself published in the and that's statistically true. More people who work for the magazine get published than otherwise. But anyway, Paul Muldoon is a great poet. He's actually a wonderful jazz musician too, and he's terrific guy. So I said, all right, I'm going to write a New Yorker poem according to these instructions. So here's my New Yorker-like poem. We met, we flirted, we sparkled at each other, and imagined a future together. But then it was way too soon. Now it is way too late. There is moss in my yard where grass should be growing.
That's far too sophisticated for the New Yorker. It makes too good sense.
So what I wrote there was absolute and complete utter nonsense. But
And the asterisks are the
it fits all
sparkling.
the definitions, especially the non
Yeah,
sequitur, the
these are
sparkling.
that's a sparkling.
Oh yeah, those are my sparkling.
That's what holds the poem together.
Well, that's right. And, all right, now my semi-serious effort was called Flute, Dawn, April, and Hope. These are Patricia's words. This is basically just an imagined image. Okay, yeah, the words that we're supposed to use are in bold letters. She stood stark naked in the clearing in the damp dawn of a fine April day, playing her flute with flagrant audacity, unabashedly flaunting her eerie beauty. To behold her was to long to hold her, to harbor a hopeless hope to have her. But then she vanished in the morning mist.
Wow.
Yeah.
The thought that you ever have flashes of a vision of some sort. This is not like coincidence, but you imagine that you're seeing something, or maybe you hope to see something, or wouldn't it be nice to see something?
It's a little
See it in your mind's eye.
Yeah.
Did you then walk into a clearing to see if she was there? Since you thought of it, it would.
What was she playing?
A flute. I don't even what probably Mozart, most likely.
What did you do with the empty bottle?
Yeah. Well, actually,
He threw it in the creek. Yesterday, I was raking the backyard, and on the corner of my eye, I saw a person. And it was my sweater hanging on the line. I was in another world, I guess.
There was a ghost in that sweater, really
Remember
was.
when Marianne told us about her dying mother-in-law who saw people, Catholic
Yeah,
priests, I guess,
yeah,
coming together, coming for to carry her home. So I think we do imagine things, so we see them in our mind's eye, and we believe them, whether they happened or they didn't.
Yeah, well, but then, I hope I've got enough of these. I don't know. I think I counted some. If not, stop.
Once she eats, right?
Once, yes. And I would suggest that you might want to get Joe's poem because it's got all the prompts at the bottom.
All the prompts.
And this has all the prompts on the back page.
You used all the prompts. Oh,
Yeah,
my
but if
God.
you're working on,
Patricia, you are too ambitious.
if you're looking at the front, you won't be able to see the prompts.
The good thing I
But you don't have them in order.
Are there any more?
Ruth
No,
is a list of the prompts in my two
I
poems.
have-
Oh, I'd love to
I
have
did
those. Thank you, Joe.
I counted up, for some reason, I got 8. I don't know who showed up that I wasn't counting on. Maybe I
Maybe I
didn't
did.
count myself.
We're ready to go. Where?
Somebody's gonna have to share.
We're sharing.
Okay.
Do you have one?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, with Joe's poem, The Hope of the Confident April Dawn, that has all the prompts on the bottom, and these are not in order. I didn't think of them. And they're not in boldface either. So, Old Town's certifiable antiquarian is up to his usual antics, warning all who will listen, damn few, truth be told, to beware of moochers, hangers-on, indeed all social parasites who grub about in the mud and mire and the glue-like grime of politics. And where would a woodcutter fit into all this? Because that was the other prompt.
That was the one remaining dangling prompt. We call that a dangling prompt.
I like
Minuscule hummingbirds with grandiose ideas spent the better part of Wednesday hovering about and investigating the red and white pleated skirt of the patio table. They seemed to expect some extraordinary nectar to lie in the linen's depths, poking their beaks, sharp as tigers' teeth, into the creases and folds of fabric, ignoring the cassia fistula, the golden shower tree ablaze over their heads.
Wow.
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 I just realized those little black specks on the nursery table are actually ants, each laboring across the table, down the leg, across the floor, balancing one of the cookie crumbs the kids had spread all around.
Mhm, we have lots of
Well,
those.
it's balancing, nourishment, and flecked. That's number one.
The fence between here and the dock is covered with honeysuckle, which threatens to...
What happened?
That's because I needed the word the honey, not honeysuckle. So, the fence
Stay
between
tangled.
here and the dock is covered with honeysuckle, which threatens to envelop everything. It's funny, we never thought we'd have to cope with losing everything. It's gone lock, stock, and barrel. After a harrowing day and a worse night, I am given reason to hope by the sun filtering through the rising mist of an April dawn, the flute-like call of a wood thrush, and the rising chorus of other birds busy with living. All day that chipmunk has raced up and down the major traffic artery it has established on the trunk of a sapling fallen across the hill garden. Now it lies stretched out on a rock, panting, catching its breath, before continuing with the
Wait a minute.
hopeless that the on the other
You said a
side.
truck
Well,
on the trunk.
on the trunk.
Oh, okay.
Trunk. Did I say
thought
truck?
that
That
was
truck
sapling.
has,
Truck.
is it a six-wheeler or a?
18-wheeler.
18-wheeler.
Stretched out on, I can't even find the word anymore. Now it, oh, I see, established on the trunk.
Yeah, that,
There
I
it is.
sort of got lost on that.
Yeah. Okay, we'll start again with that.
Trunk.
All day that chipmunk has raced up and down the major artery, major traffic artery it has established on the trunk of a sapling fallen across the hill garden. Now it lies stretched out on a rock, panting, catching its breath, before continuing with the hopeless task of trying to carry off all the seeds fallen from the bird feeder.
Does a sapling have a trunk?
Of course it has a trunk. Doesn't have a very big one.
Steamer trunk or other kind? I don't know. I don't know. Interesting.
It may not have a bowl like a big tree, but it has a trunk.
That wouldn't be a bowl.
I probably not.
Wow.
Well done. You used them all, didn't you?
Well,
Very nice.
one.
Yesterday morning, while Sven and I were fussing about in the kitchen, getting ready to have breakfast, this, kept seeing this creature flying back and forth across the windows outside on the deck. And then it occurred to me, that's a hummingbird.
Oh, I need to.
So I went and boiled up 2 cups of sugar water and put it out there, and the little guy was waiting in the tree for me to hang up that feeder.
I need to.
Now,
I
he
gotta
would,
get mine
he,
now.
every year, they do something to attract my attention when they show up, so that I will,
So like that, let's get on with
Yeah.
Where's our tree? Huh?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's fabulous. How about that?
Snap to it, girl.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to hummingbirds, right?
Oh, who knows?
That's good to know, so I'll go home and concoct
They're back.
a concoction.
They're back.
You know, creatures are so much smarter than I grew up thinking they were. You know, the intelligence of crows or squirrels,
yeah.
or someone sent me a YouTube video of the intelligence of a squid. You know, they're very intelligent
Yeah.
too.
As our
maybe
octopus
one-
did.
This one had been imprisoned just to see what it would do in a screw top peanut butter jar that was empty. They put the whole thing, they love to crawl into confined spaces like this, and the thing was screwed on tight like that. And that squid looked up at that and spun it off and was out of there in no time at all.
Really?
My
Astonishing.
goodness.
How did they know to do that?
When I was in Africa, in Swaziland, we were out in a Land Rover, and there were a herd of elephants in front of us. And the bull elephant, who's the leader, got separated from the rest of from his harem and the little ones. And because one of the people that worked at the park had accidentally shut the gate before he got through. And we watched that bull elephant for close to an hour while he figured out how to unlock the gate. He did not knock it down. He did not create any violent act, but you could just see it. And he eventually got it and was able to open it and peacefully walk through, enjoying the rest.
Did he shut it behind himself?
Yes, he did.
Unbelievable.
Our blue macaw.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
astonishing.
He would undo all the cage
Yeah.
locks and so on. Yeah.
He studied it for hours,
Yeah.
talked about it to himself.
Now, you didn't hear the bull elephant talking to himself.
And got out.
Yeah.
You could see his mind.
It reminds me, some of you may know Hal Arkes, he used to be here.
Yeah.
Hal told a story about when he was, I guess, an undergraduate at University of Illinois in Chicago Circle, and he was in this biology class, and they had apparently a bunch of sea creatures in these tanks, and they kept noticing how some of them were vanishing overnight. What happened to this creature that was over here and over there? So someone set up a watch, and at night, the octopus would move the top off his cage, crawl out, go over to some other aquarium and take out his dinner, and then go back and put the cover back on the cage. I mean,
I've seen that clip, actually.
And he waits
It's on
till night.
YouTube also. It's absolutely astonishing. It's certainly a true story.
yeah.
They are definitely smart. You don't want to mess around with an octopus.
Well, that's
An octopus and
why
a squid are different things too. aren't
the
they?
whole idea of scuba diving, just, no way I'm gonna do that. I'm not getting
Oh,
down there
that's
with
fun.
the creatures.
That's-
Caught by now.
Eric and I, son Eric and I pulled an octopus out of some rocks in the groin outside of our house, and we put it in an aquarium to which he was just starting a saltwater aquarium. And within a short period of time, that octopus wasn't big. That octopus had inked up that aquarium, gotten out, and was heading back to the beach.
Really?
Yeah.
They knew which way to go.
He was going home. We helped him
Okay.
and emptied the tank and had to start all over again. Yeah, yeah.
I have
But they loved to eat cowries, the cowrie shell. And you could always tell where they were in the rocks because there would be all these cracked cowrie shells laying on the ocean floor. So we know we'd get in there with a hand and pull out an octopus. That was fun.
How big was this octopus?
About 12 inches
About that
from,
big.
yeah, about 12 inches, yeah. So the body was about that long.
That's pretty
And then
good.
the
She
tentacles. It was a
intuited
beautiful
that.
creature.
Yeah, that was it's a coincidence, but could be.
What's the probability?
Walk into a gift store, and generally you will find everything is under this size.
Okay, yeah.
typical measurement.
Got people to carry it on.
Yeah.
Well, in spite of their intelligence and all the things that are so admirable, but the fact is both octopus and squid in a Provençal sauce, wow, they're delicious.
Some are less enthusiastic than others about that.
Well,
What
my
have you got for
squirrels-
us, Ben? Did you pass yours out already?
Oh, I should
I'm
pass.
just gonna say, I have a squirrel that has gotten through every baffle I've concocted. And he just went through the 11th one. I have had it.
Wow.
If Sven ever has a heart
They are
attack, it will
smart.
be from chasing squirrels.
Smart as a whip.
I got one, thank you.
One left over. We'll start on vertical prompts.
Okay.
So this is I have Patricia's list in front of me, so anyway. The working vertically. That ancient fence, pickets carved with fluting, paint peeling with chips falling like crumbs scattered beneath a toaster, guards an antiquarian hitching post that lies the remains of last fall's leaves through which the curious chipmunks rummage. Or across. Behind the fence, now sagging and old, stands the mailbox with the simple name Honey. The postman leaves her grandmother's envelope, the one with the doubled over fold, that he knows must contain the birthday girl's annual gift of money.
Nice.
Okay, I tried to rhyme something. Anyway. Okay, so much for prompts. Bob Kaufman recently celebrated a birthday. I don't know how many are familiar with Bob Kaufman, the beat poet who came to be known as the father of bebop, and he was a merchant mariner for 20 years or so, and finally went to the New School in New York, where he met Burroughs and Ginsberg, and eventually went to San Francisco to join Gregory Corso, Kerouac, and Ferlinghetti, and fostering the beat movement. But anyway, I don't have copies of this, but if you're interested to look at it, pass that around. I'd like to have it back. So Bob Kaufman, the man who inspired the word beatnik in the 1950s, poet Bob Kaufman, born Robert Garnell Kaufman in New Orleans, Louisiana, April 18th, 1925. When President Kennedy was shot in 1963, Kaufman took a vow of silence and didn't speak again until he walked into a coffee shop in 1975 and recited his poem, All Those Ships That Never Sailed. He said, all those ships that never sailed, the ones with their sea cocks open that were scuttled in their stalls, today I bring them back, huge and transitory, and let them sail forever. His wife encouraged Kaufman to write down as many poems, but he wished to stay hidden from history. He said, I want to be anonymous. My ambition is to be completely forgotten.
Well, there's the first.
So in
And
many
most
respects,
people will agree with it.
in many respects, it worked. But it still comes out, it still emerges. And on the other side, we have the
I can't.
Civil Rights Month, April. The Poetry Month was, anyway. The American dream never woke up. Now who talks about that dream? Who walks it? The blowhard politicians talk the dream to persuade voters, but for their own selfish gain. Who walks the dream that says all citizens should have a secure, warm, and dry home of their own for their family? A few quiet people do. But the dream now publicized is to become a multimillionaire. Civil rights are replaced with demands for property rights, and each person, as a consumer, is urged to accumulate more. Money is speech, and corporations are people, and poverty and unemployment are the way things are. Martin Luther King Jr., 50 years ago, hailed another dream that judgment is based on character, not appearance. And with this dream, he walked into gunshots. Now, 50 years later, there are those who lecture that they judge by character. But who are the ones trapped in the inner city? But who goes to prison? And what children never get to school? And which children are not welcomed when they get there and consequently learn very little? And now, 50 years after the Voting Rights Act, voters' rights are being revised and limited by those who feel their own vote is totally important, while the votes of others are a bothersome nuisance. Can the answer be life off the grid? That more is not better? Valuing handcrafts over the products of distant factory slaves? Valuing music we make over the blaring of faddish electronic amplification? Valuing diets of products grown in a 30-mile radius over supermarket boxes? Can we skip from valuing plenty to valuing prudence? Can we switch from drug relief to the pace and pacification of nature? Can we talk honestly to people we deal with rather than lying to them? With the likes of all this, can ever it be that we shall overcome? Ah, that we could be spared the history of this nation. It appears we as a nation never learn from it, and we continuously repeat it in every new and devious exclusionary ways.
It's a nice summary of the news.
Thoughts of the month.
Yeah.
On the month.
Wow. Another dark.
That's a dark. Yeah, I hate it to be the
I think
bottom.
these two need to change their diet.
Right. Too much bitter vetch we've been having.
On the second line of the first stanza, you spoke the word about, but you did not include it, so.
Now, who talks about that dream?
Yes.
Well, yeah,
There's
but
no-
I think that
really-
you didn't mean to have it in there.
I didn't mean to have it in there, no.
Who walks
Who
the
talks
walk?
the dream,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
It's like who walks it.
Yeah, walks the
Yeah.
walk and talks the talk.
You said,
Second
The second
line.
line from the top.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
It's as if we just never really learn. Things keep happening over and over.
Well, it seems 50 years go by and everything is up for grabs again.
Yeah.
Everything's always been up for grabs, and